All right, all right, all right. It's not quite what's his name from Texas. All right, all right, all right. But it's mine. It's a real all right. It's Thursday, the 27th of June, and I'm hoping you're here because I'm looking up at TV. And first off, my Phillies here. Let me get my Phillies hat out. My Phillies should have won this game that they are currently losing because the home plate umpire sucks. Just horribly sucks. Zach Wheeler is cruising up. What was he up? 3-0, 4-0, 4 to. It was 3-0. Anyway, he's cruising, and the home plate umpire should have had a third out in the inning that the Marlins ended up scoring four. I'm like, really? And I like the fact that Zach Wheeler was berating him from the dugout. He was already out of the game, right? What, you gonna throw me out when I've already been pulled? Because Mr. McKnight doesn't know that I swear, I will try not to until I bounce it off him that I'm allowed to. But by the way, Mr. McKnight, you can effing swear. Let me get a new tongue. Walmart. You can effing swear on this channel. If you don't want to, or if the people that are watching would rather you not, if you got a kid, actually it says where he resides with his wife and daughter. I don't know how old your daughter is, but I'll keep it clean. I'll keep it clean as much as I can. But trust me, watching that home plate umpire, Wheeler should have gotten another win. I don't know if they've officially lost the game. It was 6-4. Hang on, let me see if I can go back to the last channel. Let's see here. They're in a commercial, so it's probably the bottom of the ninth. Yeah, it's the bottom of the ninth. Oh, they scored another run, the bastards. That's somewhat clean. So now they're down 7-4. Effers. Anyway, we are joined by sports broadcasting author, sports author. Because I was actually looking at his bio, you saw that I actually got his information right. And I like the third book too, being a Phillies fan. All you Atlanta fans out there know Dale Murphy as Dale Murphy, but Dale actually played for the Phillies too at the end of his career. He was a good player. And I was going to say, I thought he was in the Hall of Fame. I am amazed. Oh, and Mr. McKnight's going like, no, you schmuck, he's not in the Hall of Fame yet. So we're gonna talk to him about that. But you can tell Mr. McKnight I play fast and loose on this, right? You know, SEC regulations be damned. 3 books: The Voices of Baseball, Greatest Broadcasters on America's Pastime; The Voices of Hockey, Broadcaster on the Fastest Game on Earth; and the third book, which I've already alluded to, Batting Clean While Dale Murphy Belongs in Baseball's Hall of Fame. Yes, he does. So we can get another Philly in there. And I was impressed too. You know, I've had a chance to interview a few people, including Mr. McKnight. I actually had a chance to interview the only back-to-back referee in a Super Bowl. And I'm going to get the book out. I was really, anytime I get a book that's signed by the author, I have a special section for it. Jim Tunney. So anytime I get stuff like that, I try to get the author, and I don't try to crack it because I even try to keep the spine. I don't know if you can see it. See, I try to keep it so that it doesn't even have any cracks on the spine. Yes, that means I haven't read it. But I'd rather keep it pristine and then try to find another copy later, and then I read that one. And I'm not I'm not going to show you my shorts. I am wearing shorts. Sometimes I don't. But going back to Mr. McKnight, Vin Scully, Bob Costas. We'll talk about Bob Costas, the Raider fan. Oh my God, you're not. If we get into that, Bob Uecker, love Bob Uecker, love Bob Uecker. Marv Albert, great guy, and he had some issues at the very end of his career. Doc Emmerich, the hockey guy. Doc Emmerich. He was national. He was like the Canadian national guy, right? See, I'm right. I was like Mr. McKnight's going, yeah, Schmuck, he's right. Yeah. No. Oh, okay. I don't know. Maybe he's pulling my leg now. And Dick Engberg, great guys. So again, fantastic interviews. I will try to figure out if I can get the book. By the way, the Phillies 2 outs. And Harper made the last out. That's not good. Oh my goodness. Bryce is he has his hand on his hamstring. Don't like that. Bryce Harper was leading the vote for everybody. Maybe Aaron Judge has it in American League, but I know that Bryce Harper has the vote in the National League. I don't like the fact that he's pulling on his hamstring. I don't have the volume up because I don't want to get a YouTube strike. So without further ado, and by the way, thank you, Clayton, for being here. And thank you, Anna Diaz, for being here. And again, Mr. McKnight, this is normal me. I just come on. So again, Mr. Kirk McKnight, currently the editor of the Wickenburg Sun out of Wickenburg, Arizona. So I'm trying to see the replay. Oh, he barely, I don't even know if he, but the picture, I don't even think he got the base. See, I'm trying to I'm watching and talking and all those things as well. Hartford Whalers, I recognize that. See, I'm not stupid. I'm old. I'm old. I know, I even know old-time hockey teams. Mr. McKnight, thank you for coming on. Again, you don't know me from Adam. So unless you saw any of my videos that I put up on LinkedIn, I'm unique. I'm unique. I am an actual broadcaster that's from school, Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Also, and I'm very proud to say this, the Armed Forces Network down in Cuba. So I have some stuff. Just haven't hit the networks yet, but we'll see. But again, Mr. McKnight, and for everybody that's here, thank you for being here. Clayton Heron is one of my Bronco fans. That's he's cool. He's a cool Bronco fan because he's from Wisconsin. So he has what's the word I'm looking for? He's not an a-hole. Anna Diaz is here as well. I think I gave all of the best highlights, but if I missed anything that's major, I mean, obviously, proud married guy with the daughter. And like I said, I think the only curse word I said was bastard, but that's like borderline. But again, welcome, Mr. McKnight, for the show. Thank you, sir, for coming on board.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sir. Anytime. Now, I will say this. This is it's a sports audience. It's there's a lot of Raider fans that will watch this, but it's not all Raider fans because I go across all reaches. There are people that will watch this that are not all Raider Nation folks, but the fact that, like I said, Clayton, who lives in Wisconsin, is a Broncos fan. And Clayton, if there's anything you want to know about that, Clayton's a Brewers fan, obviously. And then Anna Diaz is one of our wonderful folks that lives in Las Vegas. Actually, Anna Diaz, I'm an Intel professional by trade, 37 years, actually, or 38 years in the intelligence analysis field. prior to last year, but I won't talk about that. But no more. But any of I get good intelligence. I get it from Anna, who's in Vegas, so she'll feed me Vegas intelligence from good sourcing. I got a couple sources around. Um, they worked out where I haven't gotten any really bum gouge. In fact, I have a source that when Devontae Adams was going to be traded to the Raiders, I knew about it 2 days prior, and the fact that he was supposed to be traded for a one and Darren Waller. And that didn't transpire because of the rules of trading players for people that were that had the what do you call it, the number, the tag. Well, Waller was supposed to be a Packer and a number one pick, and then the NFL said, "Nah, it's got to be picks." So Darren Waller could have been gone, a couple years prior. But good sourcing there, and I have it on. People tell me things that's mostly good stuff, and I appreciate that. So again, Mr. McKnight, a career as a journalist, something I wanted to do when I went in the Navy, but the intel field was the first school. I said, hey, either journalism, intelligence, or cryptology. Which school goes first? The intel school went first. I haven't looked back badly on it because it kept me for employee at a while. But I've always wanted to be a journalist, so that's why I've been a broadcaster as well. Tell us something about you, sir, your background. What got you to be an author? What is your favorite teams? We'll talk obviously in Arizona, what you're around there and what you follow and what you put out, sir.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm actually from Las Vegas. I grew up there. So I left Vegas about the time the Raiders arrived in Vegas. And I went traveling the country with my family in an RV during COVID, basically. We traveled south, kind of went to places that didn't have too many mandates, too many restrictions for us. So it was a good time to be out traveling the country in those specific areas. A lot of times, the parks were all closed down, everything like that. But we got in it the right time, and everything was great with that. And we went all the way down to basically Daytona Beach in the RV, and then made our way back slowly. So I was there ground floor during the opening night, Golden Night. That was a huge night. I was very happy to be here, being a hockey fan. And I think it's just interesting that, all this years growing up, going to baseball games at Cashman Field in Vegas, and finally got to one game at the new Las Vegas ballpark up there in Summerlin. And I leave town, and all of a sudden now they get a Major League Baseball team. Well, 7 years basically. It'll have been 7 years or 8 years by the time I left, that they get it. But I think that's very interesting that transpired, because all my life I wanted to, have a professional baseball team at the highest level. So I've been here down in Arizona. Wickenburg's only 50 miles west of Phoenix. So anytime I want to go to a Diamondbacks game and get hooked up with the tickets, or get a press pass and go to the Coyotes game, which obviously ended this year. I don't have to get a hotel in Phoenix. I can just drive back home to my house in Wickenburg. So it's been fun being down here the last couple of years. And, in a small town, this is the birthplace of Val Kilmer. He grew up here. His mom passed away I don't know how long ago. And I haven't had a Val Kilmer sighting. He's had his problems with cancer and throat cancer and all that. So I'm sure he doesn't travel much and come back here. But this is the birthplace of him. But also, this is a place that's, becoming quite on the map as far as just certain things. But it's also a nice little pass-through place. So since I've been the, journalist and editor and everything here at this newspaper, I met Richard Petty and did a story on him. He was passing through with his son, Kyle, who did this fundraising. They do a motorcycle run every year, and they decided to stop. They came down the 89 coming out of Sedona and everything like that, and passing through here on their way to Phoenix. Really scenic route on their motorcycles. Richard was driving the three-wheeler, and he kind of slapped the bench next to him for me to come over and talk to him. We had a little interview, and I had him sign my. I ordered on eBay, knowing he was going to be there. I ordered the King car from the Cars movie because he was the voice of the King, and I had him autograph that. That's on my wall in my office. So as far as people I've met since I've been here, I mean, there you get a. This is like the fountain of youth. I mean, I'm friends with a former producer who's basically still a member of the Academy. So when they say I'd like to thank the Academy, they're thanking my friend. And I've interviewed plenty of people here, but prior to coming here, I mean, all the interviews I've done with over the two books with all these broadcasters, a lot of the big ones you named. I was shaking my head. I was nodding at first because you said Doc Emmer, national broadcaster, which is true, but he was a national broadcaster for NBC Sports. He did the Stanley Cup final and all that for a long time before he finally retired. But and before he even did that, he was a broadcaster for the Devils a long time. Most Devils fans know him, and he was a broadcaster for the Flyers for a brief time too. You know, I think he started with the Devils, went to the Flyers, then went back to the Devils. Then he was national the whole rest of the way. Him, you know, Gary Thorne was pretty much on the national level as well. That's one I didn't list in my little thing, but there's probably a handful of known names and household names from the three books. Ernie Johnson Jr., another one that a lot of people recognize. He helped me out on the Del Murphy book, and Bobby Cox helped me out on the Del Murphy book too. So the Phillies are one of my favorite teams, mainly because my favorite player got a contract with them this year. That's Whit Merrifield, but they don't play him. So I mean,
actually, that's kind of more his fault than anything else because when he was playing, he wasn't even hitting the Mendoza line as far as batting average.
That's what happened when Toronto picked him up and in the late stage of 2022, and then season 2023 with Toronto, he was lights out. He was one of their better players, and now he's back to the way he was. But before, when he was with Kansas City, I mean, he was leading the league, leading the majors in hits 2 years in a row, led the majors in steals one of those years. I mean, very solid player. And if he can just they don't give him enough shots as it is. You're right. He doesn't hit that well, but they've been benching him 70% of the games this year. So, or maybe closer to 60%, but it's been over half. I get alerts on my phone every day. So, having said that, you mentioned Del Murphy played for Philadelphia for a brief time before like the end of his career. I love the fact that Bryce Harper took Del Murphy's number when he came over to Philadelphia from the Nationals. So he's wearing number 3 just like Del did all those years in Atlanta and for a couple of years in Philadelphia. I don't know if that was calculated or intended by Bryce, but it might have been.
Actually, well, I don't think it. Well, it might have been calculated to a point, but remember, Bryce Harper's number when he was in Washington, I believe, was 33. Okay, and I believe the pitcher, or no, not 33, 34, and the pitcher that was killed in the airplane crash that is
Idle. Halladay.
Yeah, Doc Holliday. Thank you. He had Doc Holliday's number, and he didn't want to be, out of respect for Doc Holliday. Not for those that don't know, Doc Holliday, the baseball player, not Doc Holliday, the guy in Tombstone. Okay. But that was his nickname because of, it was Holliday, great pitcher for both the Blue Jays as well as the Phillies. And so that was his number in Washington. So out of respect for Doc Holliday, he didn't take that number. So he lopped off the 4, took 3. And it was Del Murphy, had that number as well. And so it worked out well. I mean, I have a couple Bryce Harper jerseys for the Phillies, and it's one of those things there where I like to buy older players because when you buy current players, especially for the Raiders, they end up leaving. So most of the players that I got that are Raider jerseys, unless they're on sale. And yeah, I did buy a Josh Jacobs on sale. I did buy a Darren Waller on sale. But what I plan to do is, and bless you, sir. What I plan to do is get some of the name tape and take Waller's name off the bat and put Hendricks on the back. So it'll be a Ted Hendricks jersey, a newer Ted Hendricks jersey. And I know Ted, so hopefully I'll get him to sign it when I see him, providing I see him, because these players that are up there, they're not looking the greatest of health. Bless you again, sir. And it is the fact that, Ted was in a wheelchair the last time I saw him. I saw Jim Otto in the wheelchair prior to him just recently passing. Tom Flores was supposed to go to an event this past spring. He's up there in age. So the older school Hall of Fame Raiders, obviously we wish them well, but we don't know how much longer they're going to be around. So blessings to Coach Flores, blessings to obviously Ted Hendricks. I got the picture right there. It's actually signed to Captain Jack Ted Hendricks. So I got one of those things there. So we love to have them around, but if you got a New Jersey nowadays, the one that I'm keeping that will be there for a while, let me see, let's do this. Is Max Crosby, because Max Crosby is all Raider all the time. And I think he'll actually stay. But I go for, like I said, my Phillies jerseys of note are like Carlton, Luzinski, Boa, Tug McGraw, old school, pardon me, winning championship players. And I do that as well. But now, which begs the question, if you're from Vegas or you had the childhood in Vegas, who were your teams growing up? Because Vegas didn't have any teams back then.
So I was what you would consider a TBS kid. And that's why I wrote the book for Del Murphy, arguing for Del Murphy for the Hall of Fame, because he's the reason I ever got interested in baseball. Watching TBS every day after school, I'd watch the Atlanta Braves just suck. But Del Murphy was still great. He was my idol. He was my role model. So he never made it into the Hall of Fame all those years on the ballot. I think the timing of it was bad, and obviously the way his career kind of wound down wasn't good for it either. But if you take a 10 or 11-year sample of his career from 1980 to 1990, it's hard to argue against him getting Hall of Fame. 2 MVPs, back-to-back MVPs, playing on a very middling would be complimenting him. It was a horrible Atlanta Braves team. No run support, nobody on base when he comes up. Yes, his career batting average was 265, but you look at some of these players, look at the batting averages now, and you get these players and you get some runners on, you knock in a couple more runs with those runners on, and he had the speed. It's just nobody knocked him in. So, I mean, you look at some of his stats, he still had 398 home runs. He could have had 400. And people knock him for not having 400. That's ridiculous. He played during the 81 season, and that was a strike-shortened season. I think they shortened the season about 50 games. You don't think in that time of his career that he could have gotten those 2 home runs during those 50 games? You're ludicrous. You're out of your mind. He played every game.
Yeah. And now he played before they had the foursome of Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox,
Yeah.
and Steve Avery. Everybody forgets Avery, but I always count you. I said, hey, who are the 4 starting pitchers? And they keep going, and I can't. Steve Avery, man, who was a great pitcher in his own right. But they had that. They had that team, but that was at the very end of his cycle. In fact, he might have been gone for a bit of that as well when he was with Philadelphia. And it's unfortunate because imagine, even though that great Atlanta team where they won 10 or 11 West titles in a row with that franchise when they were playing in the West, and he had 1 World Series. it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. Baseball's like that.
I mean, combining the West and it doesn't make sense. Why was Atlanta playing in the National League West? I never understood the National League West because Cincinnati played in the National League West as well. Atlanta's even farther east than Atlanta is. So I wanted to bring this up because, it was 14 straight division titles between them being from the NL West and when they finally got a map out and said, no, this team's east. And so it became 14, but you mentioned those 4 pitchers, and if you would read in the book The Voices of Baseball and just see how it differentiates how different teams fared in different ways, the San Francisco Giants, had that ballpark, it's still Oracle Park. They had Barry Bonds, they had Jeff Kent, 2 Hall of Fame worthy players, not yet in the Hall of Fame. I'm not advocating for Bonds to get in the Hall of Fame. He could have gotten into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, he could have gotten into the Hall of Fame.
He could have gotten in the Hall of Fame before his head barely got big.
Yeah, that's what I say. The same thing about Clemens. Those 2 guys could have cakewalked into the Hall of Fame on their God-given talent, and they decided cheat fate, whatever. But Bonds and Kent, JT Snow, all those players, massive hitters, home run hitters. They didn't, they came within 5 outs of the World Series of winning the World Series in 2002. But it took getting a solid pitching staff in that ballpark starting in 2010 to get 3 championships in 5 seasons. Now, you look at that. If you look at that lineup of Atlanta pitchers and you put them in a ballpark like Oracle Park, you're not going to get 1 World Series out of them. You're going to get 4, maybe 5 at the very least. That caliber of pitching in a ballpark those kinds of pitchers could really take advantage of, that's what you're going to get. The Detroit Tigers, when they had Scherzer and Verlander, if you look at the Detroit ball field, that has got to be one of the pitcher friendliest for power pitcher ballpark in all of baseball. If you look at the dimensions, you look at the foul territory, you look at it's a very expansive outfield, but it's very, very hard to get a home run straightaway center. It's the deepest straightaway center in all of baseball. So you play to your strengths in your ballpark. When you move away from that, you see the success go away. The Tigers, they were riding on the success of having hitters like Miguel Cabrera. They had Maglio there too. But the real story was you had Scherzer, Verlander, Porcello, Pfister, Anibal Sanchez. You have this solid pitching line in a park that's just totally meant for pitchers to be able to get away with a lot of things as long as the hitters didn't pull their swing or go off of taco. So if you were to it's kind of like a lot of times people, it's like we play Madden or we play MLB The Show and we have these scenarios. Think of a lot of these scenarios and a lot of these pitching lineups or hitting lineups in a ballpark that wasn't the one they were playing in at that time. And a perfect example is that of Smoltz, Glavine, Maddox, and Avery. If you put them in a pitcher-friendly ballpark like Oakland even, in that deep under that canopy, the marine layer, and that ball just dying. I mean, look at how the Yankees are playing right now. I knew that was going to happen. As soon as that air goes from that cold to that summer heat, and that ball travels way better. And once you start playing against better competition, and you have that hot air and that thin air basically from the heat, as opposed to that cold air fresh out of spring training on the coast or up there against the ocean, it's a whole different ball game. I mean, no pun intended, but that's the truth. And now watch the Yankees. They're spiraling right now because they really don't have as good a pitching as they thought they did. They just had the elements that made them look like they have that great a pitching. I know I'm going to get a lot of haters that are going to hate on me, but just watch how things transact throughout the summer for a lot of these teams when you see that this ball is going to start just flying out of these ballparks. It's an easy time. It's the early spring and April and May is really an easy time for people to bet the under on these baseball games as far as runs recorded, especially when you have pitchers duel. You can make a ton of money betting online just by going with the under when you know you have 2 aces in April and May.
I should do that, and I know things like that. I just don't bet. Probably because it's one of those things where it's hard enough for me to get money, and then to try to throw it away on something that, and I do going to Vegas. I've bet a couple times. In fact, when I was there earlier, I took the over on the Raiders wins because they only had it at like 7.5, and I'm like, yeah, that's an easy bet. I think I only bet 50. So, if it continues to be like that when it comes to the season, my friend Anna is. I'm going to say, hey, Anna, I'm going to send you some more money. Oh, actually, in Florida, I can actually bet in Florida now. So I might do that here and save myself some things. But it's one of those things where it's hard enough to get money and keep money. I don't like throwing it away. I really don't like throwing it away, even if it's quote unquote a sure bet. Sure bets don't always come through. But as far as if you look at the climate, the ballpark, the players, the science, if you look at things analytically, like you said, that's an easy bet. Under in April, May, when it's still relatively frigid. Then once you hit June, July, August, oh my God, the home runs just go out because climatically, the hotter air makes the ball rise and makes it thinner for it to go out. It's just science, folks. If you don't know that, then you didn't pay attention in school. So
I mean, look at Oakland when they had Hudson and Zito in that Coliseum. A pitcher could get probably at least an inning and a third more. I don't know about on average, but I would say if you were to say on average, I would have no hesitancy saying at least 2/3 of an inning on average more per game average, basically because that foul territory in Oakland as opposed to the foul territory in Yankee Stadium, those hitters get second, third, fourth chances on those fouls, but those are like 3 or 4 rows up in the seats. But in Oakland, as long as you got a good corner infielder that can run over to those stands, you get those outs and you snuff them in. But also that marine layer where the bay is right there and it's just lurking. And was it Diego Herman pitched the perfect game last year? And I explained to people, I'm like, I'm not trying to take away from that feat, but if you're going to do a perfect game, you can't think of a more aiding ballpark than doing a night game in Oakland to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Your pitch count is going to be lower because of that foul territory thing. Your pitch count's lower, and you go deeper into the innings. So taking in that into account, and obviously, he was dominant anyway. I'm not trying to take away from his accomplishment. A perfect game.
Yeah, well, it helps.
The game is 160, 170 years old, and I think that there's been, 24 perfect games in its history over that many years. So, it's something that happens. I don't know when the last one that happened, but it was several years ago, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember who the last one to throw was. I know Burley had one. I know that Dallas Braden had one, but there might have been one since then. But still, it's a very hard thing to do. No hitters almost are happening 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or 5 times in a season now, when they were practically once a season, if anything. But you want to talk about a good place to get that crutch, not the crutch, but that aid, that assistance. That Coliseum is definitely the place to do it. Now, when the A's move to Vegas, they will be the second highest altitude in all of baseball. Right now, Arizona is. And Arizona is about, I think, 1,800 feet or 2,000 feet. Either way, Vegas is 200 feet higher than Arizona. And I think Vegas is trying to do an open air kind of ballpark, like partially open, partially closed. But they're still going to
wait a second. You're forgetting the Rockies play in Denver.
I said that's first. No, Rockies are first. I'm saying second right now is Arizona.
Okay.
But Vegas will be second. No, the Arizona, Colorado's got everybody beat by 3,000 feet.
Right. I'm sorry. I missed that portion. I'm like, dude, why do you think that it's like a bandbox in Denver when the Rockies play,
Yeah, and having to bring that humidor in to actually kind of offset that. but still, Colorado's a very strong hitter's ballpark, regardless of that humidor effect or not. It's a giant outfield, just like Detroit. So it's easy, even if you're not knocking them over the fence like you used to because of the humidor, you're still getting them into those gaps. And you get a good, solid power hitter and some good speed on there, you're going to be scoring some runs. Now, of course, pitchers don't like going there. That's one of the other things about baseball is having that ballpark that attracts pitchers or not. Texas, when the Rangers played in Arlington and they had the open air stadium, they didn't really do well in attracting pitchers. They always had hitters. Globe Life Field, where they play now, closing that up, keeping that sun from searing the grass and ruining it. Now they got artificial turf. All those things that the old ballpark wasn't, Globe Life Field is. Now, they won the World Series. 11 of those wins were of the postseason wins were all on the road. So it's hard to tell, home versus away as far as Globe Life Field because they really didn't play in there that much. The first two series, they only played one home game because they swept Tampa Bay and then they swept Baltimore, only playing one game. But the field getting pitchers, obviously DeGrom wasn't in effect last year because he went down for the surgery, but they had gone 5-0 in the playoffs and they hadn't even used Scherzer. The stadium is supposed to be climate. Yeah, well, it can be a climate controlled stadium. That's the thing. It's the outdoor ballpark wasn't. That's the whole point.
Right, right.
The ballpark they have now is pitcher friendly because they don't have basically the seats right on top of the field. The distance from the third base line to the front row was hardly existent at all at the old ballpark. So that's what I mean. Those players get the extra foul balls. They go into the stands where they might be caught in other ballparks, so they get second, third chances. But they had a wind effect in that old ballpark, that open air ballpark, Globe Life Park in Arlington, and the balls were just flying out of there. They finally took out the backstop behind and opened the stadium up so that wind can escape out the back and not sit there and circle around. It was called playing on the moon. And so you have Globe Life Field, you have a controlled environment. The pitchers are a lot more comfortable. They don't feel like the ball is just going to fly out in that extremely hot North Texas heat in the summer.
Yeah, so, but Anna was actually talking about, I believe, the proposed stadium in Vegas. In fact, and I'll put up her other one. And apologies, Anna. I saw him. I was trying to do a good segue for you, with the thing. And she wanted to know. I mean, you're ripping up Tropicana, and again, Anna lives there, and it's not even going to be done for a couple of years. And you also heard that they are going to be called the A's. Not the Salt Lake City A's. No, they're going to be called the A's. Like when the Raiders had the hats for years. In fact, I have one here somewhere. Trust me, it's here. I have a Raiders hat. There's no city on top of it. They're going to be the A's. They're going to be the Athletics because they're not even going to let Salt Lake City lay claim to the Salt Lake City A's. They're just going to be the Athletics. So,
well, you're talking about Salt Lake City. That's the hockey team moved to Salt Lake City. The baseball team's moved to Vegas.
Yeah, but before they play in Vegas, they're playing 2 years away.
They're playing 3 years in Sacramento.
Okay, I'm sorry. I knew it was. I thought it was Utah though.
No, Utah wanted him. Sacramento got him. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. Utah was making a bid for him. That's the kind of thing. All this transpired in this short period of time. Utah was they were lobbying to be the intermediary home for the A's while Vegas was building the ballpark.
Right.
They didn't get it. Sacramento got it, which makes a little bit more sense. I mean, the Salt Lake has a minor league team just like Sacramento has a minor league team, just like Vegas has a minor league team. They're all in the Pacific Coast League.
Right.
But for whatever reason, Sacramento got it. And then maybe a short, brief moment later is when they made the announcement that Arizona Coyotes were moving to Salt Lake.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about that? There's a lot of movement, and it's unfortunate. But I will say this: the Coyotes didn't have a large fan base there, and that's why they moved. And they're going to move to somewhere where the obviously the owners are going to get bang for the buck for people coming in to see that team.
When I first moved down here in late 2021, we went to a few games during the 21-22 season at Gila River Arena. And that's about a 18,000 seat arena. And you had about 11,000 on a good night. And that was usually when a really good, really well-traveling team was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So when they announced they were not going to renew the lease and that they were going to be moving into Mullet Arena, I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? Or how long is this going to last? Because Mullet Arena, and I went to 4 games over 2 seasons when they were in Mullet Arena. It's amazing for a fan as far as the action because it's a one-tier arena. So it's like going to watch. It's like when you would be, except for a state-of-the-art one-tier arena, but it'd be like when you see on old movies when they're just playing like in Norfolk or something or somewhere in Fargo.
I've been to a Norfolk Admirals game. That was wonderful.
Right,
watching the Norfolk Admirals. Yeah,
a small setting, and that's what it was. But you're like, nobody's making any money on this. There's 4,600 seats. I mean, you fit 22,000 into Montreal's arena, and we're talking these guys have a fifth that. So it was just a matter of time, and I honestly wish the best of luck to the Coyotes. It's going to be sad not getting into games and get my press pass when they're playing up in Salt Lake next year and not have a 1-hour drive to go catch a game there. But how long was this going to last? They bounced over 3 different arenas the time they were here. They only had 1 season where they made it past the first round in the playoffs. They made a run to the Stanley Cups, or not the Western Conference Final. That was the first year that the Kings won in 2012. But that's it as far as playoff glory. That's boiled down to 1 season. They were here for 27 seasons in hockey, and that was after coming down from Winnipeg, where they had never won a season or never won a postseason series as the original Winnipeg Jets either. So they need ownership. They needed to get they just became. It's just like the scene in Moneyball when Brad Pitt's sitting there saying how we're they're taking our kidneys. So and so has our kidneys. So and so has our heart. So and so has our legs. We're basically we're organ donors, is what he said, and that's kind of what the Coyotes' role has been. Yeah. So I'm happy for Utah because I know what it's like being from Vegas to basically be told, "Hey, we're bringing an NHL team to you." I mean, when I was there at outside T-Mobile Arena when they announced the Vegas Golden Knights logo and team, I mean, I was there wearing my Red Wings jersey and I was standing next to my buddy and we were just sitting there like taking it all in. And who would have ever thought they would have the most successful expansion or most successful season in expansion history of the 4 major sports? Just that, that opening year just put everything on the map. And you just think of everywhere you looked, somebody had a Vegas Golden Knights sticker on their car, hat on their head, shirt on their back, whatever. It took the world by storm. And I'm hoping that it does the same thing with Utah. Now, I was irate at first when I found out that Utah couldn't even come up with a name, and they're going to be called the Utah Hockey Club, kind of like Washington was the Washington Football Club.
Right.
Made the playoffs, won the NFC East as the Washington Football Club, and you're going to do the same thing as the Utah Hockey Club. But think about it. How much of that generic merchandise is going to be snatched up this year? And people say, I got it. I had that shirt first year. And then as soon as they name the club, how much more merchandise is going to get snatched up once they have a name and a logo?
Yeah.
It sounds stupid from a perspective of a fan being like, get your crap together. But from a marketing perspective, it's double revenue.
Yeah, because they have the original and then they have the new and improved brand name. Okay. And I think that, and again, I do tangents there, Kirk, so I apologize if I go tangentially off, like, what the hell is he talking about? But it's like when you talk about Washington, when they go from Washington football team to the Washington Commanders, and then they get new ownership, and they're trying to bring the Redskins name back, and I'm like, I'm all for it. And about most of the people that have anything going on with it are all for it. But here's the other thing, and here's my tangent as well. You took away the Redskins name, but you still got the Kansas City Chiefs. You still got the Atlanta Braves. I know one of your teams, right? You took away the Indians name and you made them the Guardians, but they're still the Braves in baseball. And so what the Foxtrot, right? It's bullshit that you're playing favorites. And I will say this, and I can't stand it, but I'm from Florida. I'm a Gator. But the Florida State Seminoles have the backing of the Seminole tribes of Florida. They don't have to worry about that name because they have the backing of the Seminole tribes. They're golden. They're golden. But you can't tell me that can't take the name of the Kansas City Chiefs away when you take it from the Redskins or the Atlanta Braves, when you take it from the Indians. It's bullshit. I'm just saying it right now.
Yeah,
Your thoughts on it?
I agree with that, because I feel like you have to be across the board if you're making these kinds of decisions. You got to be through and through. You can't just decide this, there, another. But what I think is funny is, and I don't know, this isn't known by too many people, but I get these alerts all the time. Cleveland actually had, if I'm not mistaken, somebody can Google this and look it up, but I got an alert, somebody told me or something, that Cleveland actually had to pay a women's roller derby league team that was called the Cleveland Guardians. They actually had to pay them for the rights so that they could be the Cleveland Guardians of Major League Baseball. I thought that was so hilarious, because to me that was just the ultimate falling on the sword for Cleveland as an organization, to be like, fine, you're going to make us just discard this tradition of X amount of years. We're going to make it official. Like, we're going to fall on the biggest sword ever. We're going to go spend money to a roller derby team that probably the amount of money that we're going to have to do to settle this, to get this name, will probably pay for the entire league in perpetuity forever.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do that so that we can have that new name, so that you're all satisfied. And we'll have that really stupid looking logo to go with it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, and obviously for those that don't know, originally the Cleveland team was the Spiders, and their best baseball player was the gentleman by the name of Nat LaJoie, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who was an Indian, an American Indian of whatever tribe was local, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame baseball player, but when he was with the team, the Spiders, and it was Nat LaJoie's team, they just said, well, hey, we're the Indians, just like Nap is. It's about the short version of that, and nobody had a problem with it until all of the PC people had to stand on their friggin' bandbox soapbox and say, oh, we can't have that. So, and again, just knowledge that I have. I don't know. I'm sure you probably knew about the Spiders and Nap LaJoie and things like that. But the people, they don't understand that. So, and I'm sorry, you wanted to talk about the Tropicana. Let me put that back up. I had it up. Anna was talking about your thoughts of the Tropicana being taken out, and again, that's a cluster foxtrot for Vegas.
The sad thing about them taking out the Tropicana is, I went to the Tropicana in late 2019 to park there and go across the street to MGM Grand to go see the Eagles, and with my wife. And it was the first time I had been inside the Tropicana Hotel in easily a decade, maybe even more. And it was immaculate in there. It was a complete change over the last time. And that's the thing. It became like a running joke for the longest time of the Tropicana just being a total dump, you know? I remember when I was a kid, my sister took me down there and they had a light show, and they would have the lights on the side of one of the towers, and it would be like this laser light show with music, and it was the coolest thing ever. I loved it. And obviously that went away, but also Tropicana was one of the first places where I walked by a pool and I saw people like swimming over to blackjack tables. They had a casino, like they had a pool with tables there so people can gamble. I don't know how you get your chips, like you sitting there like hands above water taking your chips across the way. I don't know, but it was interesting. And then over the years, all the other hotels started coming up. See, I was in Vegas before, the initial boom when Steve Wynn kind of set the tone and opened up the Mirage and then Treasure Island. And then all of a sudden, buildings start getting imploded and new buildings get put up. But the Tropicana during this whole time for years became a laughingstock and just a dump of a place. They totally turned it around. They totally renovated it out, looked brand new, looked nice and everything like that. At least the lobby did. I don't know how the rooms were. I never stayed there. So for them to do all that, which obviously costs 9 figures in and of itself, how far into the 9 figures, I don't know. And to basically just take that section of Las Vegas away and turn it into that, I don't know how much I agree with that. I mean, if you guys are following anything, and I'm close enough to Vegas that my family still tells me things, there are businesses that are going bankrupt there because of Formula One or F1 or whatever it is. That F1 race is putting some businesses out of business and is crippling others that were hugely popular because of all that construction. Because Vegas is a different beast than it used to be. With all that construction, you have cab drivers who are all about driving through the construction zones because, hey, money, money, money. The meter's running. This is what costs you. So, of course, the people in the cabs are like, okay, it's going to cost me $100 just to get to this restaurant. It's going to cost me another $100. One of the more popular joints off the strip. Basically, because of all that construction and the lack of accessibility, it lost millions. And it basically, during the week of F1, well, Batista's Ellis Island, those are 2 other ones. I'm talking about she's given the example of Ellis Island. A casino is basically crippled because of this. The restaurant is Serrano's or something like that. It's on Paradise. But they wrote a letter to the city like, we lost millions. We lost 20% of our revenue. Our employees can't even go to work those 5 days because the strip is closed. I mean, it's just a thing that to me doesn't belong. So when you're going to put the A's right there in that part of Vegas on the Las Vegas Strip, I can only imagine the nightmare the construction's going to be. Because here's the other thing. So the cab drivers don't mind doing it, obviously. But on the opposite side, Vegas is very Uber and Lyft centric now. I worked on the Strip at the Treasure Island for 12 years. I know all about Uber and Lyft. And those guys are not going to take a set fare to sit there in a car for 45, 50 minutes driving through traffic just to get a $20 fare to take somebody to a restaurant and then basically stuck there. It doesn't make sense. I don't blame them for it. They probably are off the strip doing whatever they can and staying away from the construction zone. So when you think of that, that's just Formula One. Now you're going to talk about a ballpark construction right there on Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard for 2 or 3 years. I just can't imagine the nightmare it's going to be. I can't imagine people wanting to do anything. They're going to have to basically find a way to teleport people from the airplane to their hotel rooms to get them to want to even come here. Because who's going to want to sit there and throw all those charges out on top of their stay as it is? I worked the valet. I know what people get like when they drive into Vegas on Friday night and they've been driving through the California desert for 6 hours, only to sit there in line for 3.5 hours, only then to find out once they get their room that they're paying $40 extra a night for the resort fee. Those things just add on. So when you talk about the paying for parking, or if you're not paying for parking in these garages, but if you're sitting there paying cab fare out the wazoo, who's really going to honestly gravitate to that? I hope it works out. I think it's a bad area to open up a 38,000 seat ballpark or whatever they decided to do. The Allegiant Stadium is another nightmare. when I found out they were putting Allegiant Stadium, where that's the confluence of the I-215 and the 15, I'm like, you guys are out of your minds. There's only one lane on the off ramp and on ramp, and you're talking about a 65,000 seat stadium, not to mention the 5 or 10,000 people that'll be sitting there in the suites. I mean, come on, are you seriously going to throw those on that confluence? Yeah, look, it's just ridiculous. That's 8 times a year. Baseball is 81 games a year. It is a completely different game. No pun intended again. 8 a year versus 81 a year. Nightmare.
Yeah. I'm obviously I'm in Tampa, or I'm close to Tampa. So people ask me where I am, and the Rays up until this year, they were always in like a American League East marquee team. They sucked this year, and they always had a good team in spite of all of the bullshit that they had to deal with another Tropicana, which is Tropicana Stadium over in St. Pete. And that whole area sucks. They have where they're going to have the new area, and all of the people, well, I should say all, but the majority of people are saying like, dude, why in the Foxtrot are you putting a new stadium over in St. Pete with this area? Bring it over here to literally right down the street from me, over at the fairgrounds, where it's like 75 and 4 meet, something like that. For Florida, I don't know if you know Florida, but I-75 and I-4, that area is like pretty close to where I live, and that's the area, right? Because you have 75 and 4, and that's a crossroads where you can get everybody, people coming over from Orlando, down from Ocala, up 75 from St. Pete and Fort Myers and things like that. That's the area. But no, you got to go all the way over into the hood still in St. Pete. And we're going to have all it's just bullshit. And people should think about that, but they don't. They don't. And it's unfortunate that it's like, well, we're going to make this money doing this here, but they don't really care about the other offshoot parameters of what sucks for other people. So again, sorry about that there, Kurt.
There's a lot of that too. I mean, if you think about, they moved from Turner Field out to, out into Cobb County or whatever, where the Braves play now. Beautiful ballpark, the Truist Park, gorgeous. Luckily, I didn't have too bad of traffic driving in when I was back east. I was staying in Macon for a few days. So I got my daughter and my wife stayed back and had a nice little nap. And my daughter and I shot up to 85 miles up to Atlanta to catch a game at Truist Park. But that was another thing that went into consideration, because they were thinking, you're taking it out of wherever it was. And there's questions about the location. There's questions about who would be season ticket holders. All these logistics, it's crazy. But I mean, those things do add up, and those are the things that do drive a team out of the city, out of the market, just like Arizona. But yeah, I just feel like, having lived in Vegas my whole life, I like that they put that Las Vegas ballpark up there in downtown Summerlin. I feel that's a nice secluded place. But it is what it is. I think just seeing F1 and just seeing what it did to the businesses and everything, I feel like Vegas should maybe reconsider. But the wheels are already when's it slated to be demolished?
10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And Ann, you are my source on this. If I'm not mistaken, it was a 10-year contract, and it's etched not only in Jello, it's etched in stone, it's etched in platinum. It's 10 years to screw up your plans. And last year was year 1, so we got 23 through 33 or 32. It's gonna F up everybody's meal ticket, and they're not getting enough out of it. There were people that were going there. It's like, this sucks. Even the F1 people that are like true F1 fans, it was a Vegas event where there were people to be seen there and do there, and the real fans got shut out. The real fans of F1 even got shut out, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
So, but we don't matter there, Kirk. We're just peons.
I mean, I'm happy for Vegas becoming such a sports mecca, but a lot of these places have the right idea. Milwaukee, you have a Milwaukee fan. They have the right idea where that ballpark is out in Milwaukee. It's kind of it's out of there. It's kind of like in the sticks as compared to some of these other places where they have their ballpark. So it induces a good crowd. You're going to have 81 games, no rainouts, obviously, because it's a convertible ballpark. But it's also an experience because you have it out in the out in the sticks, so you kind of have out in the sticks kind of behavior. You guys tailgate out there before the games. It's like a real college football mentality out in Milwaukee. So that's my idea of a good ballpark experience. Is not sitting there being stressed, going through traffic, and then showing up in the second inning like you do going to Dodger Stadium. I actually went to Wrigley Field in 2021 for a day game, and then shot up to Milwaukee to catch the Brewers at their 6 o'clock start. I was hoping it'd be a 7 o'clock start, but so I could have stayed a little bit longer at Wrigley. But getting into and out of now what is it, American Family Field? It's the kind of experience you want going to a baseball game. Not stressed, not sitting there bumper to bumper, looking at red lights, flashing in your eyes. It's the way a ballpark experience honestly should be. Now, whether American Family Field is my favorite ballpark that I've been to, no. I mean, it is what it is, but it's at least a good experience.
I think the best one I've had, and I didn't realize it when I bought the tickets. I went to an Indians game in whatever their ballpark was when we were traveling around, and I got club seats. And I didn't realize that the seats we had, they had free food. And I'm like, whoa. I mean, me and food to get, you can't see it, but this is a very big tub right here. My cardiologist hates me for it. But I was like, and I could watch the game, and I had a boatload of like, was it prime rib and spaghetti and pizza and cotton can and like just everything to shake a stick at watching the Indians play. I saw a baseball game and I ate my nose off. So that was probably the best time I've ever had at a baseball game because I didn't realize that the tickets included, the club seating with the food. I'll have to try to remember that the next time I go back and do another game and see what I can do. But great ballpark too, by the way. It was beautiful. I watched when the Phillies just played in Detroit, and I was there for the draft this year, and I didn't get a chance to go into the stadium, but I know how beautiful. I think it's Comerica, if I'm not mistaken. Comerica, the sight lines are wonderful, and it's just brand new, and it ain't Tigers Field. You ain't gonna see Gates Brown parking a home run over the Raptors where Reggie put one in the 72 All-Star game. That, Gates Brown and Reggie are probably be the only people that could do that, but it's a beautiful statement. I want to make sure that I go to as many as I can, which leads me again as a baseball first, I'm thinking, and hockey second. How many of the stadiums have you been through as your journalism career has popped in?
I've been through 20, but 3 of them are no longer in use. The 3 that I've been to that are no longer in use is Old Yankee Stadium, Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego, and it's now called Choctaw Stadium, but that's the Globe Life Park in Arlington where the Rangers played before they put the Globe Life Field. So 17 current ballparks. The 13 that are left are basically up in the Northeast. The only ones west of the Mississippi that I haven't been to are Target Field and Globe Life Field. I haven't had a rush over to get to Globe Life Field. I should have while I was touring the country because I I say touring. I was just traveling. I shouldn't say touring. I'm not a rock star anymore. But yeah, we were traveling the country, and I was not too far from. I was in San Antonio, so I mean that's about a 3.5 hour drive from Dallas or Arlington. I did the drive before when I was 19, but that around the time I was down there in San Antonio was the was the game that Joe Musgrove threw the first no hitter in Padres history there at Globe Life Field. So that would have been something to see. My favorite though is San Francisco's ballpark, Oracle Park,
Yeah.
and second would be Petco Park in San Diego.
Yeah, I see it. I've seen games at both Petco and at Jack Murphy because I'm old. You know, it's like my roommate in San Diego was one of the original employees for Qualcomm, and I don't know if she kept her stock options, but if she did, she'd be sitting on millions right now.
Right.
If she was one of those original people.
Right.
But I don't know what happened to her. But anyway, but Jack Murphy, I like Jack Murphy as far as both seeing the Padres and of course watching my very first Raiders game ever was at Jack Murphy watching the Raiders play the Chargers, and of course we won. And I always remember that. I got the original ticket as well. But I've been, like I said, I've been to Vet Stadium, which doesn't exist anymore. I've been to. I didn't go to the. I don't think I've been to Truist, but there was a park in between Fulton County and then the one that they're in now. There was another one.
Turner Field.
Yeah, I think I was at Turner Field, so that don't exist anymore. So I'd have to look at you as well, but you know, I haven't. And I didn't go to Shea, but I did go to Citi Field, and that's a nice field if you can get through all the Met fans that are there. You know, that's all that is there. But no, I like this. I like to. That's why, as a sports person, I like to go to as many games of all the sports just to say, hey, I've been there and it's cool. So I've been to Wrigley. I haven't been to Yankee Stadium yet, and I have yet to go to Fenway. But this last trip that I had, I finally got out to Dodger Stadium so I could say, hey, I finally went out to Chavez Ravine, which was cool.
So you can say you stayed for 2 hours after the game before you left the parking lot.
It was well.
What a nightmare.
It was a nightmare, but my nightmare was I couldn't even get out of the ballpark because I made the mistake of I went to an elevator and I was getting I was at the level I needed to get on. So I went to and I didn't realize I was at the ground. And so I went back into an elevator and went up to the top. And I'm like, and I was for about an hour trying to get the elevator to go back down.
Yeah.
So once I finally got to the area going back down, and I had a bad leg day, so I'm rolling around in my cane, and nobody, not one person in a golf cart came by to help me out. I was pissed.
Yeah.
So I schlepped out to my truck, and the only good thing about when I left is that I have personalized plates, and one of my Raider friends saw that I had, Captain Jack plates on my truck, and it was Florida, so she knew it was me, and she's beeping at me. So we went out, we had dinner afterwards, so it timed out perfectly when I left. But yeah, it was about 2 hours at least to get the F out of the stadium, but I went there, which was cool.
Yeah, that was let's see, that was the last time I went to Dodger Stadium. Was my daughter's first major league game. It was Yankees and Dodgers, 2013. And it was Mariano's last year, but Mariano didn't pitch, unfortunately, because the Yankees didn't have the lead. It was tied going to the ninth, and the Dodgers got the go-ahead run the ninth. But I did get to see Pettit pitch. Pettit was one of my favorites. I turned 46 in August, and every time I turn a new age, I try to think of my favorite player that wore that number. So 46 was Andy Pettit, so I'll be fine with wearing 40 or thinking of 46 and being 46. 44 was a good year for me because that was Reggie and Hank Aaron. 45 was the Colt 45s for me.
Okay.
Even though I hate the Astros, I got a Colt 45s hat that I still wear. And people most people won't recognize that. If I go around in Houston where it, they'll understand, but a lot of people won't understand the Colt 45s. But that's another ballpark that's kind of good is Houston's.
The Astrodome or the newer one?
No, I never went to the Astrodome, Minute Maid Park, but
I was there. I was there this past on my trip. When I was rock starring, no, I was on a road trip too for like 2 months. I went to Houston to Minute Maid. That's a nice park. Thank God you're inside because it was balls hot outside.
Oh yeah, we got rained on walking into the park, so luckily it was closed. But I honestly like the more open air experience with ballparks. So when I went to Miami, it was a noonday game against the Phillies. Bryce wasn't playing, so dang it. But that ballpark inside is a complete different look than the ballpark outside Miami. On the outside, it looks like if they've turned a yacht into a ballpark. It was cool. Going inside, it was like being inside a warehouse. That's my problem with Arizona and Chase Field. It's just the weather. You can't really do much about it. Globe Life Field's the same way. From what I understand, though, Globe Life Field probably isn't as much of a warehouse as these other ones are, but maybe it is. I haven't been inside it. That's the trade-off. You gotta, if you want to be in a game and not have to sit there and be in the sweltering heat, and not have to sit there and deal with all the humidity and be in air conditioned, and enjoy it. That's where you're gonna have to sit in some of these areas. You're gonna have to be like in a warehouse. I went to a game last year. It's the last regular season game I've gone to. I usually go to spring training games, but it was Star Wars night, and it was the Diamondbacks and the Mariners. And the AC had gone out the week before, and it wasn't fully functioning. It's Star Wars night on a Saturday night, 45,000. I mean, it's sold out. And I'll tell you right now, it's the end of July. It's 118 degrees outside. I don't care. Open up the panels, open up the air, because I'd rather have fresh open air with all that stagnant sweat and humidity from all the fans being huddled together in an AC that's at 20 or 30% capacity. I'd rather take my chances with open air in the 118 degrees. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I grew up in Vegas, so when I traveled the country and I was in that 90% humidity, I hated it.
Oh, 90% is nothing when you're from Florida. Well, not originally from Florida. I'm pretty much originally from, Chicago/Philly as a young kid. But when you grew up most of your life in Florida, 90-degree humidity ain't nothing. It's when you start getting 98, 99.
Yeah.
That's what sucks.
Right. Yeah. That and I'll the third and fourth ballparks. I'll just Wrigley was an experience, but I don't put Wrigley in my top 5 ballparks. Maybe it'll be 5. I can concede it being a 5, but Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati probably takes Wrigley out.
Beautiful.
Yeah, right on the river.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ball actually falls into the river sometimes. It bounces on it. But number 3 is Truist Park in Atlanta. Number 4 is Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Both gorgeous, gorgeous outdoor ballparks. Areas where it's a good market for baseball and the fans appreciate it and go and fill it up no matter how crappy their team is. Same thing with Cincinnati. So if you want to go 3, 4, and 5, you got beautiful ballparks catered to a baseball crowd who will love you no matter what. I mean, San Francisco's the same way. When I went to Oracle Park, it was 2017. They were 2 or 3 years removed from their last championship, and they were not looking like the team they had. But by gosh, they were there, 10 o'clock waiting for those doors to open, or 11 o'clock, for them to open at 12. And they were all there faithful. And it's a gorgeous ballpark. You can see the ocean. Only ballpark really where you can see the ocean while watching the game. San Diego's like flip. San Diego's the ocean's at your back. If they flipped it, they would have had people looking out into the ocean down San Diego. But the problem was it's the wind. That wind would be shot right back in their face. Wasn't necessarily the case in San Francisco. The wind isn't sitting there spraying the batters in the face like they thought. These architects go through these barometer studies. They go through all kinds of stuff to construct this ballpark just to make sure that the elements aren't affecting the players and the fans the way that they don't want them to. It's amazing to see what everybody goes through with some of these ballparks, and nobody even gives a thought to it. But the port area in San Francisco wanted them to bring the fences in another 50 or 60 feet. And San Francisco's like, we'll be playing in Little League dimensions on Major League level. No, that's not going to happen. Sorry, Port Authority. So the things you have to go through to make sure you get that ballpark put in and have it be right and have it be the right experience. I mean, it takes a little bit of time. That's why you get the 2 or 3 years leeway for them to get a ballpark in there. But you're talking about 30 years or more of playing in that park 81 times a year. You want it to have creature comfort.
Well, if you ever get your press passes up to Truist and I'm available, let me know because I'll bring my Phillies jersey. Okay. And I don't know, and you and I don't know if you can finagle an extra press pass or whatever. Say, well, here's mine, and this schmuck does press for AFN or Armed Forces, whatever. But we'll go see your Braves, watch play my Phillies, and like I said, I haven't heard anything about Bryce Harper's injury, and that's important because you don't want to have Harper out any longer than he was before. But yeah, that was a bad hand. I don't know. You didn't see it, but I did. I don't want. I'm going to start as soon as this thing is over. I'm going to go Bryce Harper injury. I'm going to look it up. Hopefully, it's nothing bad.
I haven't gotten any alerts from ESPN, so I'm not too worried about it. They would say something. They usually say Bryce Harper or somebody left the game. They usually make an announcement like that. So I wouldn't be too stressed about it unless it's just a delayed response.
Well, he was last out. So literally,
he was last out, right?
Yeah, he was the last out. Kyle Schwarber, he left the game because they had Marsh come in for him. That's two bats I don't want leaving that lineup anytime soon.
Well, it looks like Witt's going to be getting more hitting and more.
Yeah, there you go. And
Philadelphia is my team over Atlanta. I don't want you thinking Atlanta's still my team. When Atlanta traded away Del Murphy to the Phillies, I was heartbroken. I didn't have any problem with the Phillies, but you got to understand when you're a 10-year or let's see, I was 12. I was about to turn 12 that summer. This is in the summer of 90. We're not talking there was no availability of other games for us. The only other games we could watch outside of TBS and the Braves was WGN watching the
exactly
Cubs.
The Cubs. The Cubs.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so I had Harry Carey on in the late morning, and I had his son Skip in the middle afternoon into the evening.
Yeah.
And so my connection to Del Murphy got lost. That's one of the things I talk about I almost said preamble, but in the introduction of Batting Clean is that as 11-year-old, 12-year-old kid, your connection gets cut. And really all you rely on at that time is looking at the box scores in the newspaper and maybe watching SportsCenter. But you're 11 years old. You're not watching SportsCenter at 10 o'clock at night as an 11-year-old. You're watching your favorite cartoon or a movie or going to bed. So I kind of had a detachment from a favorite team. I just kind of went from team to team. I liked the White Sox. I liked watching Frank Thomas. I loved watching Cecil Fielder play for the Detroit Tigers. So when Cecil went to the Yankees became my team. And they stayed my team. But when I started doing the voice of baseball, I just said, I like all the teams except for the Red Sox and the Astros. I can appreciate the broadcasters and all the success that the Red Sox and the Astros have had, but I don't like the teams. And going to Minute Maid Park on my trip across the country solidified and reinforced my opinion of that from watching the fans and the way they acted. It was ridiculous. They beamed Mike Trout, and the fans just were like, yeah! And I'm sitting there like, what is going on there? And they said, this was right after the scandal, right? This was right after basically they're like, we're going to just start beating you guys left and right when they found out that the Astros were cheating and Dusty Baker sitting there trying to discourage people from doing that, like as if Dusty Baker didn't play during an era where it was an unspoken rule to do this. Nice job, Dusty Baker, whatever. But the fans in Houston were just sitting there just like going off and just proud of, and they beamed 3 Angels that night. I was sitting there like, there's going to be a brawl tonight. There wasn't, but the fans were just like, yeah, well, nobody said anything when they're throwing at our heads. And I was like, hey, you guys know what happens, man. You guys set yourself up. You guys exposed yourself or you got exposed. You got to face the music and dance.
Yeah.
So the Astros fans acting like that, basically, I'm grateful. I'm Robert Ford. You're my buddy. Thank you for the interviews and the game and for the book. Bill Brown, one of my favorite people, former Astros TV broadcaster, great guy. I won't say anything negative about either of those two because they were great to me. But I can tell you right now, I was not a fan of the Astros going into that game, and I certainly wasn't a fan of them going out of it. My daughter was Mike Trout, and seeing Mike Trout get just beamed like that, she was so mad, and I was so mad because I'm like, dude, I haven't seen Trout play in a couple of years, and I'm halfway across the country. I get to see him again, and that's I think he got him on base for a walk, but then he got nailed with that pitch, and they took him right out. Like it did something to him.
I saw the Angel. I think because I know when I was in Houston, the Astros were playing the Angels in Houston, and if I remember right, and I'm not sure, when I saw the Angels on the same road trip, I think the Angels were playing the Astros as well in Anaheim. So I saw two Astros Angels games in the opposing parts. Like I said, I was kind to the gentleman that I got the seat with. In fact, I ended up paying. He paid 50, and I paid 100 for some really good seats right behind home plate because it was one of those scalpers that were trying to get rid of him. And I said, and they're like, hey, well, I said, dude, I am not spending, whatever. I said, well, I'll give them to you for, 75 each, and they were like $200 a piece or whatever, even more. So I said, okay. So I treated my friend who's a big Astros fan. And so I threw in 100. He threw in 50. So we had really great seats right basically behind home plate. We didn't get into like the second inning or whatever because we were a little late getting over there because of the Mexican restaurant we were that had the free parking. They had a shuttle, but by the time the shuttle got over there, it was already a couple innings in. But it was a great place. The Astros lost, yay. So I didn't really, I was like, because I hate the Astros too, especially after all of that crap. And they've gotten rid of everybody except Altuve, I think, but the rest, like Correa's gone. Everybody else is gone. Cora's gone. Yeah, Springer's gone. So when they get rid of Altuve, I think they got rid of basically all of the big cheaters on the team.
Yeah, and I mean, I shouldn't be so down on the Astros because it's fine. I mean, 7 straight American League Championship Series appearances, 2 World Series titles, 4 World Series appearances. It's hard to it's hard to argue that kind of success, but of course people want to
be my Phillies. So F the Astros, and by the way, F the Diamondbacks too because they took my Phillies out of the World Series last year.
I will be going to see the Phillies play the Diamondbacks down here in August down at Chase Field. I'm going to use my one hookup for the year just to ask for that. I've already asked for it, and hopefully Witt is playing. I feel like now they can't trade him away unless they basically want to trade him for picks or something. If people keep getting hurt, he's going to be a nice utility kind of player or fill in the gap. He just needs to start hitting the ball. He's looking like he did, like I said, he's looking like he did when he went over to Toronto. I thought it might have been the jab that did him in 2022 when he went over to Toronto because he had to get the jab to get over there over the border. But you can't blame the jab on that one if he's playing this crappy now. So
right.
Turns it around.
Well, like I said, there's always hope, and again, and we didn't really get a chance to talk about hockey. So, are there any memorable hockey? Because again, I was a employee of the Lightning, part of their security staff. So I was actually there when they won the Stanley Cup. Okay, in Tampa when they beat the Flames. Yeah, and I wasn't out anywhere where I could see it because I was actually in the tunnels outside the Flames locker room, and the Flames got jobbed on Game 6. That had to go back to Tampa for Game 7. They should have won that Game 6, and then they would have won, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got jobbed, and then and being a Flyers fan, obviously, and I'm just like livid, because the Lightning took the Flyers out that series too when they won that thing, and I'm sitting there, and I'm hating it, and of course I gotta. But anytime any of the I saw Jerome Ginla and his family was in there, and I got a chance to say hi to them. I told him, I said, hey, I know I work here, but you guys got jobbed in Game 6. Okay, so they knew that I wasn't a biased a-hole, that worked for the Lightning. And so I got a chance I was there, but I wasn't obviously in revelry when the Lightning won that cup. Now I will say, now in retrospect, when I got a chance to meet Victor Hedman and the goalie Vasilevsky, right, and then Kucherov, and there's one or two other guys, and Braden Point, great guys. Hedman is the most awesomest guy ever. And, I got a picture with him and those guys. So once I met them, and it had been far enough away where that stink had gone away. So now I tell people, I said, hey, if my Flyers aren't in the playoffs, and they should have been this year, one friggin' game, and they couldn't wrap it up in the end, so hopefully they'll get that done next year. But when the Flyers aren't in the playoffs, I root for the Lightning. And that's always been a good bet because the Lightning went to like the two finals and then they lost the third one. But they puckered out this year as well. So what was your thoughts on this past year with the Panthers beating the Oilers?
Well, you see, I'm from Vegas, so last year, if it weren't going to be for the Vegas Golden Knights, I would have rooted for the Panthers. What they did to get to the Cup final, and it's basically deja vu because once the Golden Knights won, then all the stories came out about Tkachuk having been injured, played through injuries all this time. That's exactly what they're starting to say right now about McDavid and I think Draisaitl was the other one. They both had some pretty bad injuries. McDavid though was playing through injuries. It's crazy to think somebody got 42 points playing the playoffs injured.
Yeah,
Tkachuk had his game winners last year. Everything about what Florida did last year, you'd want a team like that to win the Cup. Beating a team that team point wise had 43 more points than they did in the regular season. Winning his team in NHL history, most points in NHL history, and you take them 7 after being down 3-1, and that's to start your playoffs. As much as I was, hey, way to go, is the Golden Knights. Marchessault, my favorite player, getting the Conn Smythe Trophy. I got everything I could have wanted. My favorite team winning the Cup, my favorite player winning the Conn Smythe, but I just felt it had to come at somebody's expense. Dang it if it was the Florida Panthers and what they went through. But seeing the team this year, and when I saw that the Golden Knights were done after one round, they weren't the team that they were last year, obviously. They just weren't ready for that kind of run, and you can see. But I said the Panthers should win it because of all the factors that I just mentioned last year. They didn't have them going against them this year. So I thought, you know what? You're not having to sit there and duke out a 7-game series against a team with the greatest regular season in history in the NHL. You're not playing through all these injuries. You're playing, and you realize, I can't believe the series went 7. I mean, you could still knock me over with a feather the surprise that this series went 7 because I knew that Florida outmatched Edmonton so much that it was just I had friends sitting there saying, no, I still got Edmonton. I'm like, dude, defense is what wins in the playoffs. Edmonton has the best offense you can possibly ask for, but they got no defense. And I said, Bobrovsky is playing better than any goaltender right now, except for Dallas's goaltender. I can't think of his name now. Edinger. Audie Edinger. Jake Ottinger. Jake Ottinger. But I was happy for Florida. I'm glad that they actually won. I don't know what this means for Edmonton. And that's the other thing I'm saying. Connor McDavid's the best player in the world. But it takes a core of players. And that's why I'm worried about Toronto possibly getting rid of Marner. They've built up this team over there in Toronto by getting those acquisitions and getting those moves that got certain players that are like Tavares and having them to complement Austin Matthews, who's still having an amazing career. But you're going to start disassembling that, and it's going to start to become another rebuild. And by the time that build is back up, who knows what kind of player Austin Matthews is going to be. And that's the way I'm looking at with Edmonton. So I'm grateful that Florida won, got the first championship. I'm in favor of a team that hasn't won it all, winning it all, against a team that might have won it. You know, yes, they last one in 90. I think it was before the Penguins won their 2 in a row. It was the last time Edmonton won. But Florida hasn't won one ever until now. So I was happy about that. I was happy about the Panthers. I knew that Bobrovsky was the kind of goaltender that could take a team all the way to win it all. He almost proved that last year. The team kind of ran out of gas on him last year. They didn't run out of gas on him this year. He almost ran out of gas on them. That's what's funny about it.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily blame so much from what I understand, they don't put down the Conn Smythe winner until 10 minutes. They basically have to put in their results or their selection. They have to do it by 10 minutes left in the third. So at that point, that's probably when you'd say, okay, Connor McDavid, 42 points over the playoffs. His team's only down 1 goal. Who knows what will happen? Maybe he'll get the game tie, or maybe he'll get a game winner or something. But from that 10-minute mark on, Bobrovsky was the stonewall of all stonewalls against McDavid and shut him down. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe people would have changed their tunes if they didn't have to have those cards in by 10 minutes left. But, hey, give it to McDavid to get the 42 points. They gave Hellebuck the Vezina tonight at the NHL Awards. So Bob missed out on 2 awards where you could have thought he could have gotten a clean sweep, the Stanley Cup, Vezina, and the Conn Smythe. Hey, if he goes away with the Stanley Cup, that's the one you want to walk away with anyway. So kudos to him. 2 different playoff runs where he knocked out the team that Tampa Bay Lightning, 2019 playoffs, 62-win team, tied for most NHL history with the Red Wings from 95, 96.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't win a single game in that playoffs. Ran into Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
4 years later, Boston ran into Bobrovsky.
Yep. And see, it infuriates me because you know where Bobrovsky played before he went to Columbus.
Where?
He was a Flyer.
Oh, okay.
He was a Flyer. So Bobrovsky was on the Flyers, and they didn't re-sign him. And that's when they went and had. I don't know how long Carter Hart's been there, a couple of years, and then I am not even touching the Carter Hart situation, at all. But they had Bobrovsky was a Flyer, went over to the Columbus Jackets, took out the Lightning in 4, and then he takes out who I can't stand Boston. Oh my God, I can't stand Boston. We're in agreement there. Can't stand Boston, and for them to take out. And I have while I was still working, my buddy was a Boston fan, and he's like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Dude, you better watch, because the Lightning last year had the most points ever, and they didn't go diddly, and then they got taken out. Boston got taken out, and I'm not even golf clapping. I'm like cheering. Like, yeah, take those damn Bruins out there, boy. Because, when you hate somebody as much as I hate some teams, it came to them. But you're like the wife as well, because she asked, about these, and she likes sports, and she knows about sports, and she can because I've taught her well, but it's always like if somebody gets a point in hockey or baseball, or whatever, they don't win. It's just, well, at least they scored. I'm like, no. The object is to win. Okay, and I know it's. I'm not saying it in a sexist way, but in her mind, at least they didn't get shut out. And so when I told her that the Panthers have never won, and she's all happy that the Panthers, because we sat and watched Game 7, together, and I'm rooting for the Oilers, especially since Dan Levitard made that crack about Connor McDavid, and I'm like, oh, you're a typical Miami a-hole, saying things like that, all smug and stuff. And he almost got that team to come back. But like you said, they needed the defense. Bobrovsky, when he needed it in Game 7, came back and terrorized them, and they weren't getting anything by it.
Well, I mean, it's exactly the way, if you think of 2014, 2015 Kansas City Royals, same situation, like make it all the way there to the big show, fall, but make it all the way to the big show again and win, because they kept with the team. They kept with Tkachuk. They had a solid core team last year, but they ran into a Golden Knights team that basically didn't have that tough of a road going to the Stanley Cup final. Their second round opponent was Edmonton, and that was their biggest test, was Edmonton. And everybody knew that whoever was going to win out of Edmonton, Vegas, probably was going to win the Stanley Cup. But Florida, got beat up a little bit in that Boston series. They did fine against Toronto and Carolina, but by the time they got to Vegas, they had run out of gas, too many injuries. And Edmonton, Edmonton didn't have the road to the Cup final the way that Florida did either this year. Florida had an extremely tough road to the Cup final, and they still had the tank full. I think those 3 losses kind of showed that wear and tear that the Stanley Cup playoffs can bring a team, and that it's one of the hardest tournaments to get through, pretty much the hardest tournament to get through in all of sports, easily. No, without question. NBA Finals, forget it. 4 rounds of 7, get best of 7s. I don't even want to hear about the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. So, this year, Florida, with that team, basically signed the rest of the players. We're on that mission to get back to that stage with that core. People in Calgary are crying because that was our guy, Matthew Tkachuk. 2 straight years Cup final appearance, and these are the Calgary fans sitting there like he went to the other team, and now he's playing against our other enemy in this province. We can't win here because either our enemy wins or the guy that we got rid of wins. So what do we do here? So it probably was a tough final to watch for Calgary fans, to trying to decide who they wanted to lose more. Not who they wanted to win, is who they wanted to lose more. Mm-hmm. And I think that they probably wanted Edmonton to lose more than they wanted their former star to lose. And maybe they got their wish. I don't know.
Yeah. I was like, and the one thing that, because I heard, obviously, about lineage, and I heard Tkachuk, I said, his dad's got to be Keith Tkachuk. And I wasn't following along, but I'm like, there's only one Tkachuk to an old guy like me, and that's Keith. And I didn't realize until they said that his son was winning it for him. I always thought that Keith Tkachuk had won at least one Stanley Cup playing for the teams that I know he played for the Rangers for a long period of time when the Rangers had the decent players, when they had like Messier and even Gretzky back then. I thought he might have been around for that. I'm not sure where else he played, but I figured he would have been around for, the Ranger Stanley Cup, but apparently not. But, so in that respect, I'm like, okay, well, cool. His son won it, so there's some semblance of good karma for the family there. So kind of like the missus. Well, hey, the Panthers won. They've never won before. Okay, whatever, honey. It's like if you're a Flyers fan or a Lightning fan, you don't root for the Panthers to win anything. But that's just the way it is.
I was going to look up where Keith Tkachuk played. played in Winnipeg and Phoenix. That's the thing. He came over when the Jets became the Coyotes. He was there for a little bit, but then he went to the Blues and even played for the Thrashers for a little bit. So I mean, he was in there a long time. Playing, I think you might be thinking when Gretzky played with the Blues for a titch too. That might be when you saw him play with Gretzky, because Gretzky
Okay.
played for the Blues just a tiny bit. But yeah, he played. I knew that Kachuk played in Phoenix because being growing up in Vegas, you kind of see the Phoenix jerseys kind of running around when they were the Phoenix Coyotes until they changed it to Arizona.
Yeah, I know Roenick played down there too, and obviously
Yes.
as a Flyer guy,
Yes.
yeah, Jeremy Roenick, man, yeah, that's a cool jersey to have. If I'm gonna have an old school, I wanted to have I got a Lindros, but it's too tight. So I mean, I can wear it, but I can't breathe. Let's just put it that way. I can put it on, but I have to peel it off. I got a Lindros, and I got a the coach for the coach for the Carolina Panthers, the old Flyer,
Brindamore.
Brindamore. I got a Brindamore jersey too, so I got, and that one is a little bit bigger than the Lindros jersey. I can breathe every other breath with the Brindamore jersey. So I got to try to figure out if I can put in, like, go to a tailor to do a good job and like open up the sides and put like a split in there so I can actually wear these. Yeah, they would be ruined, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't done it so far, is because I want to have, the actual authentic jerseys that they had, and I don't want to open them up. So if I ever see Brindamore, if I know that did they get rid of him in Carolina, or is he still there?
I mean, he was coaching them this year. I doubt they better not get rid of him. That team, honestly, Carolina is one of those teams where I feel like they have more of the promise to go all the way than somebody like Toronto. I think they have a very good core team. They might have to make a move here or there, but they're a team that's built to last. They just haven't had that cup, and it seems like they've gotten farther. I mean, they went farther last year, but they've gotten farther from the cup as the years have gone by.
Right.
But Carolina has a very solid core team. I feel like they probably, especially if there's talks about Marner going to Vegas, which worries me because that makes me wonder where the cap space will be for re-signing Marchessault, who's a free agent now. If Marchessault goes to somewhere else, I'm going to be devastated. He's my favorite player. He was the player I wanted most in the expansion draft when I was looking at the expansion draft for Vegas. But Vegas might try to bring in Marner and get that leadership in and get that veteran status in. And if Marner leaves from Toronto, you got to put a team like Carolina in the driver's seat, at least to basically get that back. You're still always going to have Boston, and now Florida will be as a reigning champ. It's a very tough conference to be in. You obviously know this, being a Flyers fan, and me also being a Red Wings fan before being a Vegas Golden Knights fan. That was my one. Now they're my 1A. So you see what it takes to get into the playoffs in the East as opposed to the West. You see that level of competition, and it's just they beat the hell out of each other on a yearly basis. So I don't think Brindamore, he better not be going anywhere. He's a good coach. He's a great player. He's got a good mentality, and the players play for him. But who knows? Sometimes GMs and owners get a little too impatient. Thank goodness the GM and owner got a little impatient with Gallant in year 3 with the Golden Knights and fired him, and they got DeBoer, who they got tired of as well and fired him. I was grateful to have Bruce Cassidy come in. At the time, what's his name was going over to you guys, and I was thinking, oh, we want Torts ourselves, but he went to Philly, and so we're thinking, I want the leadership and experience of Tortorella, but look who got the cup the very next year in his first year coaching the Knights. You just never know.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a smart idea to get rid of certain coaches, and Brindamore is one that I would not get rid of.
Yeah, I was actually there, and I can't remember which BS sports show I was listening to, but one of the guys that was just pounding the drum on, you got to get rid of Brindamore. I mean, yeah, he takes you so far, but they always fizz out. And like you said, they've gotten farther away from the Eastern Finals than they have gotten further. And he's like, well, we just need to score more goals. Yeah, okay, yeah, no shit. We need to score more goals too. And that was his big peeve. It's like, give me something other than that, because he did a couple of different press conferences, Brenda Moore after the game, and it was literally almost the same. Yeah, we just need to score more goals, and it was the next one. We need to score more goals, and yeah, we can't win when they're scoring more goals on us, which was the offshoot. Yeah, they were scoring more goals on you, So, and that was the outlier. Yeah, we need to score more goals, or yeah, they're scoring more goals than us. Okay, Rod. Yeah, I got it. True, but you need to do something to light a fire into your team to make them go farther than than have them recede. And I like Carolina as a team because of Rod Brindamore, because of the way that coach is. I'm glad the Flyers got Torts, but you either play for Torts or you're out of here. And if you're not going to play for Torts, you're not going to play the way the Torts wants you to play, you're gone. So get used to it. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, you see me wearing what I'm wearing, so of course I'm gonna sit here and talk big on Carolina, just as a representative with the old school. I mean, when I went and saw Carolina play the Coyotes, they just destroyed them. And here I am in my Whalers gear, just like seeing if anybody's paying any attention. They got a lot of attention that night, so it's you got the old school fans there. Of course, obviously, it wasn't until they left Hartford that they actually started putting a good product on. About 5 years after leaving, they make it to the Stanley Cup final with Ron Francis, and and 4 years later they win it. So after all those years in Hartford, I don't know. You just kind of wonder with hockey. You realize that the Stanley Cup is the toughest tournament in all of sports. So you got to really build a team that's built to last. You can't sit here and what the Golden Knights did was the right way. They basically had tried it. They tried the carousel, the goalie carousel. They tried this and that. They tried bringing in leadership and bringing in Max Pacioretty. But what they finally did was we need a solid center and we need a solid defenseman. They brought in Pietrangelo, then they brought in Jack Eichel. And that was the difference maker right there, just bringing that presence in. Marchessault playing on the same line as Eichel is making Marchessault into this huge star. And Marchessault has been the most consistent player for the Golden Knights these 7 years they've been in the playoffs. Not in the playoffs, but just in the league. Not William Karlsson, who I have no problem with William Karlsson. I love William Karlsson. He's been there since day one as well. But you taking away Marchessault off of Jack Eichel's line, you disrupting that. Golden Knights will have to realize that is playing with fire, disrupting that chemistry that those two have. They lost some chemistry when Riley Smith went and signed with the Penguins. You took Riley Smith out of that dynamic that the Golden Knights had those first 6 years. It was a solid Smith, Karlsson, Marchessault. Taking Riley Smith out of that equation, having Eichel around to still supplement it or whatever you want to call it, it saved them. They won the Stanley Cup. But if you take Marchessault out of that dynamic, he's a great feeder. He's great for Eichel. Eichel's great for him. I don't want that disruption. And I pray that the Golden Knights think of those kinds of things and don't go after somebody like Marner at the cost of having Marchessault. Now, if they have Marchessault and Marner, I'm happy. Fine. But I don't think that's realistic. It's not. They did raise the cap a little bit. They added maybe $4.5 million cap space, I think they added, which bodes well for Marchessault, but not if they're going to do a big contract on Marner. I'm a little afraid of that.
Yeah, and Anna is a big BGK fan. BGK fan. So yeah, she's with you on that one. But before we do anything else, because we're gonna do the wind down again. If you are just coming in, I gotta put this up again. Where was it? There it is. To get the great books that Mr. McKnight has put out, like I said, the broadcasting for baseball, broadcasting for hockey, along with the story about Dale Murphy, make sure you go to Roman.com and look for the books. Obviously, Kirk McKnight is the author, and I really appreciate you working with me here, especially when you. And I tell people when they want to get my attention, I said, send me an email that says, "Hey schmuck." If you send me an email that says, "Hey schmuck," it drives me to say, okay, I got to get back to this person. If they text me or they send me an email where they say, "Hey schmuck," that's like putting, what is it, star 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 on a subject line in military stuff or flash. Hey schmuck. But you didn't even have to do hey schmuck. You're like, "Hey, are you going to have me on your show or not?" And I'm like, yes. And I'm sorry it took long enough to do that. But again, I was on the Rockstar road trip for 2 months, and I had different things going on. And I'm glad, I'm very happy that we had a chance to spend this, what will be at the end 2 hours. But for those that don't know, again, I'm going to hide this real quick. Kirk McKnight, that is the author right there. Voices of Baseball and the Voices of Hockey. And then Batting Clean While Dale Murphy Belongs in Baseball's Hall of Fame. I'm reading from your good script. Thing. I asked for that. I know how to do an interview. And so if I do get out to Phoenix again, I think the Raiders play not this year coming, but I think next year they might be playing in Phoenix. We'll see. I think they're playing the NFC West again, but we'll see. But if I get out there again, then hopefully we'll meet up and we'll get you in your appropriate silver and black. Your appropriate silver and black. I got enough. I'll throw something silver and black on you, and then we'll go from there. And depending on what the season is. If it's the end of baseball, or if it's it can't even be hockey anymore. The Sun are the Suns still playing out?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The Suns have been here longer than anybody, so I'm pretty sure the Suns didn't the Cardinals come from St. Louis to play here? Isn't that, or was this an expansion team? I don't even know.
What, the Cardinals? Yeah, the Cardinals. Yeah,
the St. Louis Cardinals football team, is that they came to Arizona?
Well, they originally started in Chicago. It went from Chicago. They were the Chicago Cardinals with the Bears. Then they went from Chicago to St. Louis, and St. Louis to Arizona/Phoenix, because they've had that name brand change a couple different times as well. But yeah, I again, old guy knowledge, things like that. But yeah, we'll do something. But again, I want to put this up because again, Kirk McKnight is the author. Go to theroman.com. Look for Kirk McKnight's book. Like I said, Voices of Baseball, Voices of Hockey, and Dale Murphy. And if I get a chance to, get them, we'll have to figure out. So, don't go away after I close. I want to make sure you got my phone number and things like that, and we'll go and do some things like that. I'll put you up on the bookshelf for all of the ones that are signed by the authors. It'll be cool. I got, like I said, Bruce Cadrick and John Kingdon with the Al Davis book. I got Breaker Boys, which is about the only team in the NFL that had their title taken away from them, which was the Pottsville Maroons. So I got the author of that. Donald Driver's book I have signed. Jason Stark, Worth the Wait for the Phillies. And then I've got a book that's signed by Robin Roberts about the Whiz Kids. So those are some really cool books. And again, obviously, Jim Tunney's book. But again, for those coming in late, you have missed, gosh darn it, you've missed the live version, but you're going to see this when it comes on again on YouTube. It'll be there for you to see. Go to Roman.com, get your 30% off coupon, and get your 30.0001%. I'll throw it. I'm just kidding. Said mention Captain. They don't care. Just go to Roman.com. use the RL Fan DF30 for your appropriate 30% off. Mr. McKnight, I'm going to do my outro. I want to thank you again, sir. It's good to bring people up here so we can at least get the brand out. And we'll have to do some more talk. You're invited anytime you want to come in and talk anything. It's an open invitation for everybody.
Thank you.
All right. So again, I'm going to kick you out, but don't go nowhere.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. That's Mr. Kirk McKnight. Like I said, I'm going to keep the coupon code up there for everybody. And that is the Thursday night You Don't Know Jack About Sports show. Come back on Sunday where we'll do another episode of Ask Captain Jack. Remember, this show is normally about you guys doing the commentary or doing the calls. When I have a great guest like Mr. McKnight, sorry, it's going to be an interview show, but that's wonderful because you got a chance. We were talking baseball, we were talking hockey, great, and all of those people that do it. Go make sure you go to Roman.com and get your discount code. Take care, everybody. We'll see you. Thanks again. We'll see you for the next show.